Admiral Lee Sung stood motionless on the bridge of the UES Horizon, Earth's flagship vessel, as the massive Vrelian cruiser emerged from the swirling blue portal. First contact had finally arrived. The moment humanity had both dreamed of and feared for centuries unfolded before his eyes. Behind him, the bridge crew held their breath, fingers hovering over controls, eyes fixed on the alien ship that dwarfed their own. "They're hailing us, sir," reported Communications Officer Kim Jia, her voice steady despite the tension that made her hands tremble slightly. Lee took a deep breath. 25 years of military service had prepared him for many things, but not for this. He straightened his dark blue uniform, squared his shoulders, and nodded. On screen, the main view screen flickered, and the image of a being unlike anything seen on Earth appeared. The alien stood at least 7 feet tall with skin that shimmered like mother-of-pearl under the lights of its ship. 4 eyes, arranged in a perfect diamond pattern on its face, blinked independently as they studied the humans. When it spoke, its thin lips barely moved, but the words came through clearly in English. "I am Ambassador Tula of the Galactic Council. We welcome humanity to the greater community of spacefaring civilizations." Lee maintained his composure, though his heart raced. "Ambassador Tula, I am Admiral Lee Sung of the United Earth Space Force. On behalf of all humanity, we welcome this historic meeting." Tula's upper eyes narrowed slightly. "Your recent faster-than-light experiments drew our attention. Few species achieve this milestone without guidance. The Council finds this impressive." "We are honored by your recognition," Lee replied. "Our journey to the stars has been long but rewarding. Indeed, we would like to invite a delegation from Earth to meet with the full Council. There is much to discuss about your future among the stars." Captain Wang Min, standing just behind Lee, leaned forward and whispered, "Sir, should we agree so quickly?" But Lee had his orders. Earth's governments had planned for this possibility for decades with protocols established long ago. "We would be honored to send representatives, Ambassador. When and where would the Council like to meet? We will provide coordinates. Prepare your best diplomats, scientists, and leaders. The Council is eager to embrace humanity's potential." Tula's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Until then, Admiral." The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in silence for several seconds before erupting into excited chatter. "Silence," Lee ordered, and the noise immediately ceased. "Send the first contact confirmation code to Earth Command. Maintain position and alert status. This is just the beginning." 3 months passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Earth's nations set aside long-standing rivalries to present a united front to the galactic community. The initial delegation's reports from Council Space described wonders beyond imagination. Worlds transformed into paradises, diseases conquered, energy problems solved. The promise of a golden age for humanity spread hope across the planet. Today, that promise would be formalized. Earth's United Nations Assembly Hall in New York had been renovated for the occasion. The chamber now hosted representatives from 27 alien species, their varied forms occupying specially designed seats throughout the hall. The air hummed with translation devices and environmental adjusters to accommodate the diverse biological needs of the visitors. Ambassador Tula stood at the podium, his iridescent skin catching the light as he addressed the assembled human leaders and billions watching worldwide on screens. "People of Earth, the Galactic Council has carefully observed your civilization since your first radio signals reached our monitoring stations. We have watched your struggles and triumphs, your wars and reconciliations. The Council has deliberated and offers Earth protected status within our community." A murmur ran through the hall. "Your species will receive technological assistance to solve your energy crisis and environmental challenges. We will provide defense against cosmic threats and opportunities for cultural exchange with hundreds of advanced civilizations. In return, we ask only for reasonable resource-sharing agreements and adherence to Council protocols designed to maintain peace throughout the galaxy." Tula spread his four-fingered hands. "This is the dawn of a new era for humanity. No more will you face the universe alone and vulnerable. Under Council protection, Earth will flourish in ways you can barely imagine. President Parkan rose from his seat, a dignified man with silver-streaked black hair and the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. Ambassador Tula, the nations of Earth have conferred and are prepared to accept the Council's generous offer. We look forward to taking our place among the stars. Applause thundered through the hall. On the surface, it appeared to be a moment of universal celebration, but not everyone shared in the enthusiasm. Director Song Ta of Earth Intelligence watched from the shadows at the back of the hall, his face carefully neutral despite the unease growing inside him. At 62, Song had spent his life reading people, their intentions, their deceptions, their true motives behind pleasant words. Something in Ambassador Tula's tone had triggered his instincts, the same instincts that had kept him alive through 3 wars and countless covert operations. He noted how Tula emphasized Earth's protected status, the careful wording about reasonable resource sharing, the subtle emphasis on adherence to Council protocols. To most ears, these sounded like standard diplomatic terms. To Song's trained ear, they sounded like the language of control. His eyes scanned the alien delegates, noting their reactions. Most seemed pleased, but a few, particularly the reptilian Drax representatives, exchanged what he interpreted as knowing glances. Song had studied every scrap of information about these species since first contact, learning to read even alien body language. What he saw concerned him deeply. Later that night, while celebration parties continued across the globe, Song met with Admiral Lee and Defense Minister Yoon-jae in a secure bunker 200 meters beneath Seoul. The room was swept for listening devices every 15 minutes, and a signal jammer ensured no transmission could escape. Admiral Lee, still in his formal uniform from the ceremony, paced the room. The technology they're offering could end poverty, cure diseases, solve our energy problems. The public is overwhelmingly in favor. The public sees what they want to see, Song replied, his voice low and gravelly from years of cigarettes before he quit. He pulled up holographic displays showing the draft agreements. I've analyzed every word of these documents. The resource agreements are too one-sided. They get access to rare earth minerals, water reserves, and biological samples with minimal compensation. Yoon-ji, a sharp-minded woman who had risen from field operative to defense minister, studied the projections, and these defense protocols effectively dismantle our military. They limit our ship numbers, weapons capabilities, and independent space travel under the guise of standardization. Exactly, Song nodded. They offer protection while ensuring we can't protect ourselves. Classic dependency creation. Lee stopped pacing. I felt something was off during first contact. Tula seemed amused by us, like we were children who had accomplished something cute but ultimately insignificant. I've reviewed the historical data they provided, Song continued. It's extensive but suspiciously clean. No conflicts, no ethical violations, perfect harmony among Council species. That's not how real history works. They're hiding something. But what option do we have? Yoon asked. If we reject their offer, we potentially antagonize 27 advanced species who could wipe us out if they chose to. Song moved to a secure terminal and entered a complex sequence of codes. A new hologram appeared, detailed plans for underground facilities, orbital platforms disguised as research stations, and asteroid mining operations. This is Project Umbra, a contingency plan created after the Proxima Centauri signals were first detected 50 years ago. It was designed for exactly this scenario: first contact with a potentially hostile or manipulative advanced civilization. Lee studied the plans with growing understanding. A shadow infrastructure, hidden from alien observation. Precisely, Song affirmed. We build what they allow openly, but secretly construct our own independent technology base and defense capability. We learn everything we can from them while revealing as little as possible about our true potential. Yoon's expression was troubled. This would require unprecedented secrecy and coordination. Millions would need to be involved eventually. Yet the Council must never suspect. It would be the most complex operation in human history, Song agreed. But I believe it's necessary for our survival as an independent species. The room fell silent as the three considered the implications. What do you suggest as our first move? Asked Yoon finally. Song's expression hardened, the lines in his face deepening. We accept their terms, publicly. We express gratitude, enthusiasm, even a touch of naive excitement. We become the eager students they expect us to be. He pointed to the hidden plans. But privately, we prepare, we build, we learn, and we never, ever forget that in this universe, trust must be earned, not given freely upon first meeting. Admiral Lee looked at the holographic image of Earth rotating slowly above the table, so small against the vastness of the galaxy they were now joining. We've faced extinction-level threats before, climate disasters, nuclear standoffs, pandemics. Each time, humanity adapted and survived. He looked up at his colleagues. This is no different. We just have much more to lose, and perhaps much more to gain. Then we're agreed. Song asked. Yoon nodded first, then Lee. For Earth, Yoon said quietly. For humanity, Lee added. Song shut down the holographic display. The greatest deception begins tomorrow with our grateful acceptance of the Council's terms. Let's hope we have time to prepare before we discover what they really want from us. 7 years passed under Council rule. The once independent nations of Earth now operated under the watchful eyes of alien advisors who guided policy decisions with firm hands disguised as helpful suggestions. On the surface, Earth appeared to be thriving. Clean energy-powered cities once choked with pollution. New medical technologies had eliminated several deadly diseases, and some humans even enjoyed limited travel to nearby Council worlds. But beneath this veneer of progress, a different reality existed. Choi Min, a mining engineer at the Gangwon Province rare earth facility, wiped sweat from his brow as he watched Council ships hover above the massive excavation pit. Robotic loaders transferred container after container of processed neodymium, dysprosium, and other minerals vital for advanced technology. The summer heat was brutal, but the Council representatives remained comfortable in their climate-controlled observation platforms. Fourth shipment this month, his colleague Kang Du remarked, passing Min a water bottle. Remember when these resources were used for our own development? Min nodded grimly, taking the swig of water. The Council takes 90%, leaves us scraps, and calls it fair exchange, Kang added, lowering his voice despite the distance between them and the nearest alien observer. My cousin works in the Technology Distribution Center. Says the medical devices we were promised last year are still pending approval for human compatibility testing. Min glanced at his work tablet, making sure their conversation wouldn't be picked up by the automated monitoring systems. My daughter got accepted into the Council exchange program. We're supposed to be grateful. Only 200 humans per year get selected. You don't sound grateful, Kang observed. Because the program agreement gives them rights to any intellectual innovations she develops for the next 30 years. Min's jaw tightened. But what choice do we have? It's her only chance to learn the advanced physics they won't teach in Earth schools. The massive cargo ship's engines hummed louder as it prepared for departure. Both men fell silent, watching another piece of Earth's future disappear into the sky. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Earth's resources flowing outward while promised technologies arrived slowly and incompletely. In the Congo Basin, entire forests vanished for their unique biochemical compounds. Oceanic mining platforms extracted materials from the seabed at rates that would have horrified environmental scientists of the pre-Council era, but the aliens assured everyone their restoration technologies would repair any damage. Those technologies, like many others, were consistently delayed. In the Australian outback, enormous solar farms captured energy that powered Council relay stations rather than local communities. The Council explained this was necessary for integration into the galactic grid, promising that once completed, energy would be abundant and nearly free for all humans. 7 years on, energy costs for average citizens had risen by 60%. In Washington, now President Yoon-ji sat in the Oval Office, smiling pleasantly as she signed another council directive. This one limited Earth's manufacturing capabilities for propulsion systems, requiring all spacecraft engines above a certain efficiency to be built under direct council supervision. This will ensure proper safety standards, explained Silurian Ambassador Kef, a tall being with symmetrical ridges lining his blue-gray face. After the unfortunate accident at your Jakarta facility, the Council feels this is in everyone's best interest. 2 million trained personnel in deep cover, Cho confirmed. Recruitment continues through the filtration protocols. Each candidate undergoes 3 years of observation before approach. No security breaches in the past 36 months. Council surveillance remains unaware of our actual numbers. Finance Director Wu spoke up. Resource diversion is becoming more difficult. The Council's accounting systems grow more integrated with ours each quarter. We've maintained the critical flow of materials to Umbra sites, but we may need to reduce percentages temporarily to avoid detection. Yoon frowned. What do we need most urgently? Titanium alloys and rare earths. Wu replied. The shipyards can't complete the next phase without them. Mining Director Wang nodded. I can adjust the lunar operation reports. We'll show a minor geological collapse in the Tycho crater mine. That should cover a 15% increase in materials diverted to Umbra. Make it happen, Yoon ordered. What's our timeline looking like? Admiral Lee's expression was grim. At current rates, we need another 5 years minimum before we could consider our forces ready for any kind of confrontation. 5 years, Yoon repeated, her voice hollow. Can Earth's resources sustain that level of extraction for 5 more years? A heavy silence fell over the room before Wang spoke. Not at current rates. The Council increases its quotas quarterly. Within 3 years, they'll have depleted 58% of our accessible rare earth deposits. Director Song, who had been quietly listening, leaned forward. His aged hands trembled slightly, but his eyes remained sharp. We've intercepted communications between Council representatives. They're discussing a Phase 2 for Earth integration. We haven't decrypted the details, but the timing estimates align with our resource depletion projections. They plan to move on from us once they've taken what they want. General Kim concluded, his face darkening. Or move us somewhere else, Song suggested. Other protected species have been relocated when their usefulness diminished. President Yoon stood, pacing the small circumference of the table. The weight of 7 billion lives pressed down on her shoulders. Then we accelerate. Dr. Park, your team works in shifts around the clock on the propulsion systems. Admiral Lee, prioritize completing the current vessels over starting new ones. General Kim, I want defensive capabilities on every ship, even if the offensive systems aren't ready. She paused, looking at each face around the table. We may not have 5 years. The risk of detection increases with acceleration, Cho warned. A calculated risk we must take, Yoon replied firmly. Better to be discovered preparing than to be unprepared when they make their move. As the meeting concluded and each member prepared to return to their public lives and secret duties, Admiral Lee remained behind with President Yoon. Something else troubles you, she observed. Lee's weathered face showed concern. The Council has been increasing security inspections of our solar system's outer reaches. 3 of our supply transports had to engage emergency hiding protocols last month. Do you think they suspect? No, Lee said after a moment's reflection. I believe they're preparing their own next phase. The timing feels significant. Yoon placed a hand on the Admiral's shoulder. Then we continue as planned. Every indignity strengthens our resolve. Every shipment of our resources that leaves Earth reminds our people what we're fighting for. Lee nodded. For Earth. For our future, Yoon completed the familiar exchange. A future where humanity stands on equal footing in this galaxy, not as servants, not as protected children, but as equals. As she returned to the surface and her public role as Earth's cooperative leader, Yoon thought of her predecessor, President Park's words from 7 years ago. "We will smile until we're ready to bare our teeth." The time for smiling grew shorter with each passing day. Deep within Ceres, the largest asteroid in the belt, Chief Engineer Ba Jin stood before a viewing window that revealed an achievement once thought impossible. The massive shipyard carved inside the asteroid hummed with activity as thousands of workers swarmed over the final assembly of the dreadnought Vengeance. At 12 kilometers long, it was the largest warship humans had ever built, and entirely unknown to the Galactic Council. Jin's reflection in the reinforced glass showed a man changed by 15 years of secret work. Gray streaked his once black hair, and deep lines marked his face. He had been 40 when Project Umbra began. Now, at 55, he had spent more of his engineering career building the Shadow Fleet than he had spent working in the open. "Power coupling tests complete," reported his assistant, Osu, approaching with a data tablet. "Stealth systems nominal across all sections." Jin nodded with satisfaction, taking the tablet and reviewing the numbers. "The reactor efficiency exceeds our projections by 7%. The Council would never believe humans could achieve this level of output stability." "They don't need to believe it," Sue replied with a thin smile. "They just need to not see it coming." Jin zoomed in on a section of the hull where workers were installing the final plates of the special material that made the vessel virtually invisible to Council detection systems. "The quantum fold hull plating was your masterstroke," Sue said, following his gaze. "Council scanners see right through it. 3 of their patrol ships passed within 10,000 kilometers of our test vessel last month without a single alert." "Because they look for what they know," Jin replied, setting down the tablet. "They never considered we might develop technology along different paths. Their arrogance is our advantage." He turned from the window and led the way to the central command center embedded deep within Ceres' rocky heart. The walk took 12 minutes through tunnels bustling with personnel, engineers, technicians, security teams, all moving with purpose. Every person here lived a double life, officially listed as working in approved mining operations or research stations, while actually building humanity's secret defense force. The command center doors slid open to reveal a cavernous room filled with holographic displays and monitoring stations. The largest display showed the entire solar system, with hundreds of small dots representing Council ships and installations in green, and the hidden human facilities in blue. "Status report," Jin requested from the duty officer. Lieutenant Kim Boyd brought up the latest data. Vengeance primary systems are at 97% completion. The weapons testing in the Kuiper Belt exceeded expectations. The Council investigation team attributed the energy signatures to a natural phenomenon in the dwarf planet Eris. "And our other projects?" Jin asked. Kim expanded the display. "Destroyer Group 1. 5 vessels at full operational status. Carrier Group Sentinel. 3 carriers with fighter complements complete. The battleships Thunder and Defiance are running final trials in the Neptune Shadow Zone." Throughout the solar system, similar scenes unfolded. In lunar caverns, hidden beneath the regolith of the far side, engineers tested stealth fighters designed to penetrate Council defense grids. Beneath Martian ice caps, massive assembly facilities built the components that would be transported through secret routes to final assembly points. Inside hollowed Saturn moons, particularly Tethys and Dione, humans built specialized electronic warfare ships designed to disable Council communications networks. In the clouds of Uranus, floating platforms harvested rare gases for weapon systems while appearing on official records as atmospheric research stations. Most impressive of all was the Jupiter Complex, a network of facilities hidden within the radiation belts of the giant planet, shielded from detection by the natural interference that made the region difficult to scan. There, the most sensitive research took place, developing technologies that went beyond mere reverse engineering of Council systems. Jin had visited each facility over the years, watching as humanity's secret resistance grew from desperate improvisation to a coordinated force with its own culture and traditions. Children had been born in these hidden places, the first generation of humans who grew up knowing both the public story of council protection and the private truth of preparations for independence. A message from Admiral Lee, sir, Lieutenant Kim announced, interrupting Jin's thoughts. He'll be arriving for the final inspection in 6 hours. President Yoon will accompany him. Jin raised his eyebrows in surprise. The president is leaving Earth. The council monitors her movements closely. Official record shows her on a retreat in the Swiss Alps for health reasons. Kim replied. Her double will maintain the deception. Jin nodded and turned back to the main engineering station. Then we have 6 hours to ensure everything is perfect. Double-check the slip space drive calibrations. I want the reality to exceed even the reports they've read. As his team scrambled to prepare, Jin allowed himself a moment of pride. The slip space drive represented the pinnacle of human innovation, a propulsion system developed without council knowledge, using principles different from their fold space technology. While council ships created temporary wormholes between points in normal space, the human ships would slip sideways into a pocket dimension before re-emerging at their destination. The energy signature was completely different, making detection nearly impossible for systems calibrated to look for traditional fold space distortions. In Earth orbit, Captain Handai sat in the command chair of the ES Vigilant, conducting his routine patrol in a council-approved corvette. The ship was one of 30 similar vessels allowed to Earth for system security and debris management. Its weapons were limited, its sensors restricted by council protocols, and its every movement tracked by observers at the council monitoring station on Luna. To all appearances, Han was a model officer in Earth's neutered defense force, dedicated to his duties but understanding of humanity's proper place in the galactic community. He had even been commended twice by council officials for his efficient handling of smuggling attempts by humans trying to acquire restricted technologies. What the council didn't know was that those smugglers had been deliberately sacrificed, carrying decoy technologies while the real smuggling happened through entirely different channels. Han's commendations hung in his cabin, reminders of the complex game he played. His true duty, beyond maintaining the facade of compliance, was to monitor council communications and movements near Earth. The Vigilant had been subtly modified during its last maintenance cycle, its communication array enhanced with hidden systems that could intercept and decode council transmissions that they believed were secure. Han kept his expression neutral as he reviewed standard patrol data. The 4 council observer officers assigned to his ship moved about the bridge, occasionally checking readings, but generally content that the human crew was following protocols precisely. Approaching debris field from the decommissioned satellite array, Captain reported his navigator, Park G. Recommend adjustment to heading 043 to maintain safe distance. Proceed, Han approved. The debris field was real enough, the remains of Earth's pre-council satellite network that had been replaced by superior council technology. What the council observers didn't know was that several of those supposedly destroyed satellites still functioned, hidden among the debris, providing Earth's shadow government with communication capabilities outside council monitoring. As the ship adjusted course, Han's personal console vibrated subtly against his fingertip, a notification system undetectable to council technology. Something had been intercepted. He would have to wait until his shift ended to review it securely. 3 hours later, in his private cabin, swept for surveillance devices 4 times daily, Han activated the hidden system beneath his standard desk terminal. The intercepted data appeared, encoded in a system developed by Earth Intelligence specifically for Project Umbra. When his encrypted alert sounded with the highest priority marker, he tensed. "Report," he whispered to the system. The screen displayed the decoded message. "Sir, we've intercepted council transmissions from the High Chamber. They're voting on something called the Earth Transition Initiative. Security classification Apex 9. Apex 9 was the highest security designation in council communications. Whatever this initiative was, it was meant to be kept secret even from most council species." Han's blood ran cold as he decoded the full message, revealing details that confirmed their worst fears. The Council wasn't just planning to take more resources, they were planning to relocate humanity entirely. Selected passages jumped out at him. Human biological compatibility with Tau Ceti E environment confirmed at 94%. Relocation to be completed within 2 standard cycles. Resistance expected but manageable given human military limitations. Earth to be prepared for Andorian colonization following human removal. There it was, the Council's true intention laid bare. Humans were to be removed from their home world, so that another species could claim it. His hands moved swiftly over the hidden controls. Alert Shadow Command. Code Midnight. Code Midnight, the emergency signal that Project Umbra had hoped never to use. It meant the Council had moved beyond exploitation to existential threat. It meant the years of preparation were about to be tested. It meant humanity would either stand as equals in the galaxy or lose everything. With a gesture, she activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber showing a proposed new Council charter. The document rotated slowly, key sections highlighted for emphasis. This is our proposal for a reformed Galactic Council, or as we suggest renaming it, the Galactic Cooperation. Equal representation for all species, transparent decision-making processes, fair resource allocation, protection of homeworld sovereignty as an absolute right, technology sharing with appropriate safeguards. She stepped forward, her expression resolute. You have 24 hours to ratify this agreement. We prefer peace and partnership, but we have demonstrated our capacity for alternatives should you choose conflict. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices as representatives began to debate among themselves. Some protested the short timeline. Others argued about specific provisions in the proposed charter, while many, particularly from less influential species, expressed support for the human proposal. President Yoon and her delegation withdrew to allow the Council to deliberate, though the human fleet remained in position throughout Council space, a silent reminder of the consequences of rejection. Throughout that day and into the night, intensive negotiations continued. Human diplomatic teams worked with Council representatives to address concerns and clarify provisions of the new charter. Smaller species, long marginalized in Council politics, found their voices suddenly valued as humanity built a coalition of support. When the vote came 23 hours later, it was unanimous, not because every species fully embraced the changes, but because even the most reluctant recognized that the alternative to acceptance was worse. The Galactic Council was dissolved, and a Galactic Cooperation was born. 1 month later, as the new Galactic Cooperation Treaty took effect, Admiral Lee and Chief Engineer Ba Jin stood on the observation deck of Earth's new orbital headquarters, a massive station that served as both military command center and diplomatic hub. The structure incorporated elements of both human and Council design, symbolizing the new era of collaboration. Through the vast viewport, they watched as ships from dozens of worlds moved through Earth's orbital lanes, no longer conquerors or overlords, but partners in the new galactic order. A Vrelian diplomatic vessel passed close to the station, exchanging formal greetings with Earth traffic control. Was it worth it? Ba asked, his voice quiet as he gazed at the activity. All those years in hiding, building in secret, the sacrifices, the double lives, the constant fear of discovery. Lee considered the question carefully, watching as an Earth vessel, openly displaying advanced weapons that would have been forbidden a month ago, performed a ceremonial escort for a delegation from one of the younger Council species. The Council underestimated us from the beginning, Lee said finally. They saw our acceptance of their terms as weakness, our patience as submission. They never understood that patience can be a weapon more powerful than any warship. He turned to face his old friend. They judged us by their standards. Since they would never have the discipline to work in secret for decades, they assumed we couldn't either. Since they would have rebelled immediately or surrendered completely, they thought those were our only options as well. Below them, Earth gleamed blue and green in the sunlight, still home to humanity and now a respected equal in galactic affairs. The attempted evacuation had been halted immediately, and the Andorians who had expected to claim Earth as their new colony world were instead offered assistance in terraforming an uninhabited planet in a nearby system, a gesture of goodwill that had helped ease tensions in the transition. The greatest victory, Lee continued, is that we won without destroying what we sought to protect. Had we fought openly when they'd first arrived, Earth might have been devastated, even if we had ultimately prevailed. Instead, we defended our world not just with ships, but with strategy, patience, and resolve. Bai nodded. Human qualities the Council never valued. Until now, Lee said with satisfaction as the docking bay indicators showed the arrival of a delegation from former Council species. The visitors were coming not to issue demands or provide guidance, but to begin the first truly equal cultural exchange in galactic history. The station's diplomatic reception area had been designed to accommodate the physical requirements of diverse species while showcasing human art, music, and culture. Many visitors expressed surprise at the richness of human creative expression, another aspect of humanity that had been overlooked during the Council's management. The shadow of the human fleet hanging in orbit above them gave weight to her words that no Council representative could ignore. 3 days later, the Council reconvened under very different circumstances. The Grand Chamber that had once symbolized the Council's unchallenged authority now served as a vivid reminder of how quickly power could shift. Human ships held position above every major Council world. The Shadow Fleet, now officially revealed as the Earth Defense Force, had achieved complete strategic superiority without a single planetary bombardment. Representatives from all Council species filed into the chamber quietly, their usual confident demeanor replaced by subdued caution. Many glanced nervously at the human security personnel positioned throughout the room. Troops whose advanced armor and weapons demonstrated technology the Council had believed beyond human capability. The 7 seats of the High Council remained in place on the central days, but only 5 were occupied. High Councilor Mrath and 1 other had resigned their positions following the human revelation, unable to face the humiliation of having so catastrophically misjudged a supposedly primitive species. High Councilor Tula remained, his once brilliant iridescent skin now dull with stress and lack of sleep. His 4 eyes continually scanned the room, as if still unable to believe how completely the situation had reversed. President Yoon entered the chamber flanked by Admiral Lee and Director Song, who, despite his advanced age, had insisted on attending this historic moment. The human delegation walked with calm dignity to the center of the floor, taking positions directly before the High Council dais, rather than in the lower position traditionally assigned to petitioner species. President Yoon addressed the subdued assembly, her voice clear and unwavering. For 23 years, we endured your condescension. We mined our world for your benefit. We accepted restrictions on our development. We smiled while you plotted to take our home. She paused, letting her words sink in. No one in the chamber could deny the truth of her statement. We watched as you took 90% of our resources while providing only 10% of the technology you promised. We observed how you limited our educational exchanges to ensure we would not advance too quickly. We noted how you systematically positioned us to become dependent on your approval and guidance. Admiral Lee stood at her side, his uniform now openly bearing the insignia of Earth's hidden resistance, a rising phoenix surrounding the outline of Earth, symbolizing humanity's secret rebirth from the ashes of subjugation. But we also learned, Yoon continued, her voice taking on a tone not of anger but of determined clarity. We studied your technologies and improved them. We observed how your species interact and identify the patterns of dominance you try to conceal. We mapped your strategic weaknesses, and most importantly, we prepared. On the large displays surrounding the chamber, images appeared showing the vast hidden infrastructure humans had built throughout their solar system. The shipyards inside hollowed asteroids, the training facilities beneath Martian ice caps, the research centers hidden in gas giant moons. For every council advisor watching our official programs, We had 1,000 engineers working in secret. For every approved patrol vessel you allowed us to maintain, we built 20 advanced warships you never detected. While you believed we were docile and accepting, we were planning for this day. Many council representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some with expressions of disbelief, others with reluctant admiration. High Counselor Tula finally found his voice. What do you want, President Yoon? Revenge. Reparations. The surrender of council territories. The question hung in the air as the assembled representatives held their breath. Humanity now held the power to demand almost anything, and many expected harsh terms after decades of exploitation. A new council, Yoon replied, her answer surprising many. One where Earth has equal standing with founding species, where no species can vote to displace another from their homeworld, where technology and resources are shared fairly according to need and contribution, not power and political influence. She turned to address the broader assembly. We do not seek to destroy what the Council has built. The concept of a galactic governing body is sound. The ideals described in your founding charter, cooperation, peace, mutual advancement, these are worthy goals. The problem lies not in the institution itself, but in how it has been corrupted to serve the interests of a few dominant species. President Yoon greeted the delegation personally, continuing the hands-on approach that had characterized her leadership throughout the crisis and transition. Behind her stood Director Song in his hover chair, his aged face bearing a satisfied smile as he witnessed the fulfillment of the plan he had helped create decades ago. The transition proceeds more smoothly than expected, Yoon told Lee and Ba later that evening in her private office on the station. Several former Council species have expressed interest in human slipped space drive technology, offering fair exchanges rather than demands. And the former High Counselors? Ba asked. Tula has taken a position as liaison to Earth, Yoon replied with a hint of irony. He claims to have always admired human potential and wishes to facilitate understanding between our species. Lee chuckled. Amazing how quickly perspectives can change when the balance of power shifts. Speaking of shifts, Yoon said the remaining components of the Shadow Fleet have been fully integrated into the official Earth Defense Force. No more hidden ships, no more secret bases. Everything in the open now. Almost everything, Lee corrected. I've maintained a small reserve force with our most advanced stealth capabilities, just in case. Yoon nodded in understanding. Trust would take time to build after decades of deception on both sides. As the meeting concluded, and they prepared to go their separate ways, Lee to oversee defense operations, Ba to lead technological exchange programs, and Yoon to continue diplomatic negotiations, they paused by the viewport for one final look at Earth. We stand at the beginning of a new chapter, Yoon said, not just for humanity, but for all species in the cooperation. A chapter where strength is respected, but not abused, Lee added, where differences are valued rather than suppressed. Where technology serves all, not just the powerful, Ba completed. The mystery of humanity's unexpected strength was no mystery at all. It was simply the power of determination hidden beneath a mask of compliance, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. The same determination now turned toward building a genuine partnership among the stars. 1 year after the formation of the Galactic Cooperation, Earth hosted the first Galactic Cultural Exchange Festival. Representatives from 100 worlds shared their art, music, literature, and philosophy. In the main exhibition hall, a simple plaque told humanity's story. For 23 years, we waited. For 23 years, we built. For 23 years, we learned. Today, we stand as equals, ready to contribute to a galaxy where no voice is silenced, no world is taken, and no species stands alone. The Shadow Fleet had emerged from darkness, and in doing so, had brought light to a new galactic dawn. Thanks for watching. As the confirmation of his message appeared, Han closed the system and composed himself. He would need to maintain his cover for a few more hours until his replacement arrived. The council observers must suspect nothing. He splashed water on his face and studied his reflection in the small mirror. For Earth, he whispered to himself before returning to the bridge with the practiced smile of a loyal officer serving humanity's protectors. Across the solar system, the code midnight signal propagated through hidden channels. In the Cirrus Command Center, alarms sounded. Chief Engineer Ba Jin was explaining the final modifications to the Vengeance's weapon systems when the alert reached them. The command center fell silent as the message appeared on the main screen. "It's happening," Lieutenant Kim whispered. Jin's face hardened. "Accelerate final preparations on all vessels. Recall all engineering teams from leave. Deploy emergency power to the manufacturing centers." As orders flew and the hidden bases throughout the solar system shifted to high alert, Jin looked at the massive form of the Vengeance through the command center's viewing port. 15 years of sacrifice, secrecy, and determination had created this moment. "They thought we would be easy to control," he said quietly. "They never understood what humans do when backed into a corner." The great engines of the dreadnought began to glow as power flowed through systems that had, until now, only been tested at minimal capacity. Throughout the vast hollow heart of Cirrus, lights dimmed briefly as unprecedented energy was channeled to bring the massive warship to life. Jin watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension. The Shadow Fleet was about to emerge from darkness. Whether it would be humanity's salvation or a futile last stand would soon be determined. "Send word to Admiral Lee," he ordered. "Tell him vengeance awaits his command." The Grand Council chamber on Proxima Centauri gleamed with artificial light, its vast dome showcasing the wealth and power of the Galactic Federation. 500 representatives from the Galactic Council's member species sat in tiered rows that circled up toward the distant ceiling, with the 7 high counselors seated on the central dais. The chamber had been built to impress and intimidate, a statement of authority to any species fortunate enough to be invited inside. Today's session was closed to non-council observers. The matter at hand required discretion. High Counselor Mrath, a towering entity of crystalline structure whose body refracted light in hypnotic patterns, stood to address the assembly. When he spoke, his voice resonated with a musical quality that belied the coldness of his words. "Fellow council members, the human problem requires resolution," Mrath began, gesturing with appendages that chimed softly as they moved. "We have extracted 63% of Earth's most valuable resources. Their technological development has been properly restricted. The next phase must now begin." Holographic displays appeared before each representative, showing detailed maps of Earth and its solar system. As you can see, their world sits on crucial hyperspace lanes that will become increasingly vital as we expand into the Orion sector. Additionally, the humans' biological compatibility makes Earth ideal for Andorian colonization. In the third tier, the Andorian representatives stirred with interest, their blue-skinned forms leaning forward. Their homeworld had become overcrowded centuries ago, and their applications for a new colony world had been pending for decades. Ambassador Tula, now elevated to High Counselor after his successful handling of the Earth integration, nodded in agreement. The iridescence of his skin had dulled somewhat with age, but his 4 eyes remained sharp and calculating. "I study humans for decades," Tula added. "While adaptable, they are primitive and violent, characteristics that make them unsuitable for full council membership. Their history is filled with warfare and environmental destruction. Relocation to the Ta City colonies would be merciful, providing them with worlds suited to their needs while removing them from a planet they would eventually ruin." He did not mention the carefully orchestrated resource quotas that had accelerated Earth's environmental challenges, nor the deliberate withholding of technologies that could have solved them. "The transition plan is before you," High Counselor Mrath continued. "We propose a 2-year process. The first year for preparation and initial voluntary relocations. The second year for completion of the transfer. Council security forces will ensure compliance." From the upper tiers, a representative of the Kelbraxian Confederation, one of the newer council species, raised a tentacle in question. "What of resistance?" the Kelbraxian asked, its voice translated through the chamber systems. "Humans have shown attachment to their world." Tula's upper eyes narrowed slightly. "We have systematically reduced their military capabilities over the past 2 decades. Their space forces consist of 30 patrol vessels with limited weapons. Their ground forces have been repurposed for peacekeeping. Resistance, while expected, will be minimal and ineffective." "And the resource allocation for the relocated humans?" asked another representative. "Standard colonization package," Mrath replied dismissively. "Sufficient to establish basic infrastructure on the Ta City worlds. They will be permitted to bring personal possessions and cultural artifacts within reasonable weight allowances." No one asked what would happen to the great cities of Earth, the monuments of human history, or the countless species of plants and animals unique to the planet. Such concerns were beneath Council consideration when weighing the efficient use of valuable real estate. The vote, when called, passed with overwhelming support -492 in favor, 8 abstentions, and no votes against. The Council had spoken. Earth would be emptied of humans, and the Andorians would receive a prize world perfect for their biology. As the session concluded, Tula approached Mrath in the private chamber reserved for High Counselors. "A productive meeting," Tula remarked. "The Andorians have waited patiently. Their loyalty to the Council will be strengthened by this gift." Mrath's crystalline form shimmered with satisfaction. "Indeed, and the humans have served their purpose. Their minerals have fueled our expansion, and now their world will secure a key strategic position. There is still the matter of notification," Tula said. "I recommend a measured approach. Present it as an opportunity rather than a mandate at first." "Of course," Mrath agreed. "Begin with their leadership. President Yoon has proven amenable to Council direction in the past. Prepare the formal declaration with appropriate diplomatic language. Emphasize the benefits to their species." Neither High Counselor considered the possibility that humans might refuse. The Council had relocated 7 species in its long history. Some had resisted briefly, but none had successfully opposed the will of the galaxy's ruling body. 3 days later, on Earth, President Yoon sat in the Oval Office as Ambassador Kef delivered the Council's decision. Her face remained impassive as she listened to the carefully worded declaration framing humanity's eviction as an opportunity for growth and development. "The Council has identified suitable worlds in the Ta City system for human habitation," Kef explained, his tone suggesting he was offering a great prize. "These planets have been terraformed to Earth-like conditions. Your species will thrive there, free from the environmental challenges that plague your homeworld." "And if we wish to remain on Earth?" Yoon asked, her voice carefully neutral. Kef's expression hardened slightly. "The Council's decision is final, Madam President. Earth has been designated for Andorian settlement. We offer a generous transition period of 1 standard year, with Council transport ships provided at no cost to your government. The first voluntary relocations can begin within 30 days. "I see," Yoon said, clasping her hands on the desk. "And what assistance will the Council provide for rebuilding our civilization on these new worlds?" "Standard colonization support packages will be provided," Kef replied. "Basic shelter, agricultural equipment, power generation. Your people will need to prioritize what cultural artifacts can be transported within the weight allowances." Yoon nodded slowly, as if considering the offer. In truth, she was calculating how long she needed to maintain this facade before implementing the emergency protocols that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. "The Council's generosity is appreciated," she said finally. "I will need to consult with Earth's regional leaders before making a formal response." "Of course," Kef agreed magnanimously. "But the timeline is fixed. Preparations must begin immediately." After Kef departed, Yoon waited precisely 10 minutes before activating the secure protocols. To any observer, she appeared to be making calls to arrange an emergency meeting of Earth's Leadership Council, a reasonable action given the news she had received. In reality, she was sending encoded activation signals to Project Umber cells worldwide. The communications were disguised as routine diplomatic traffic, hidden within standard government transmissions. That afternoon, she held a press conference in the Rose Garden. Camera drones broadcast her image to billions around the world and to council monitoring stations. "People of Earth," she began, her voice solemn but composed. "Today I received word from the Galactic Council regarding our future. After careful deliberation, the Council has proposed a relocation initiative for humanity." She outlined the plan as it had been presented to her, emphasizing the supposed opportunities of the new worlds while carefully avoiding any criticism of the decision. "This news comes as a surprise, but we must approach it with the same resilience that has characterized humanity throughout our history. I have assured the Council representatives that we understand their decision and will prepare our people for this transition." Her final words were chosen with particular care. "In the coming days, my administration will work with global leaders to ensure this process proceeds with dignity and order. We understand the Council's wisdom and will prepare our people for relocation." The phrase, "understand the Council's wisdom," was the activation code for the highest level of Project Umbra. Across Earth, sleeper agents recognized the signal and began their assigned tasks. Council observers watching the broadcast noted Yoon's composed acceptance and reported to their superiors that the human leadership was being cooperative as expected. Within hours, Council ships began arriving in Earth orbit, massive transports designed for human relocation and military vessels to ensure compliance should it become necessary. The sight of these ships appearing in the skies caused panic in some regions, but most humans, long accustomed to Council vessels, simply watched with resignation. That night, President Yoon boarded her official aircraft for what was publicly announced as an emergency meeting at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Instead, the craft diverted to a hidden landing facility in the Himalayas after deploying a decoy vehicle that continued to New York carrying her body double. Deep underground, in a command center carved beneath the towering mountains, Yoon stepped into a room where Earth's shadow leadership awaited. The chamber was austere but equipped with advanced technology that rivaled anything the Council possessed, all developed in secret over 2 decades. Admiral Lee, now gray-haired but still commanding, stood as she entered. Beside him were the other architects of Project Umbra. Director Song, now in a hover chair due to his advanced age, General Kim, Dr. Park, and the other section leaders. The central holographic display showed the positions of Council ships in Earth orbit and throughout the solar system. A secondary display tracked the activation signals of Project Umbra facilities as they came online worldwide. "For 23 years, we've prepared for this moment," Yoon said, her voice steady as she addressed the assembled leaders. "The Council has shown their true intentions. They give us 1 year to evacuate our planet, to abandon our home so another species can claim it." "Do we have confirmation of their full plan?" General Kim asked. Director Song's aged hand gestured, bringing up intercepted Council communications. "Complete. The Andorians will receive Earth. Humans will be scattered across 3 planets in the Ta-Ceti system with minimal resources. The Council has already begun parceling out our remaining resource deposits among their member species. They expect us to go quietly," Yoon said, her voice hardening. "To accept exile from the world that gave us birth. They believe their 23 years of manipulation and control have broken our spirit and our capability to resist." She turned to Admiral Lee. "Status of the Shadow Fleet. 87% of vessels are at combat readiness," Lee reported. "The Vengeance and 5 other capital ships are fully operational. The remainder can be brought online within 14 days. Ground installations. All primary bases are activating," General Kim reported. "Defensive systems are deploying under cover of regular maintenance activities. The Council observers suspect nothing yet." Dr. Park stepped forward. "The communication countermeasures are ready. When activated, they will disrupt Council coordination while leaving our networks intact." Yoon looked at each face in turn. These men and women had devoted their lives to preparing for this day, working in secret, many sacrificing family relationships and normal lives for the sake of Earth's independence. "The Council believes we are weak," she said. "They believe we are divided, primitive, and incapable of defending ourselves. Today we prove them wrong." Admiral Lee, his face solemn but determined, stood straighter. "Operation Midnight is authorized. May our ancestors guide our hands." The simple phrase, spoken after decades of preparation, set in motion the largest coordinated military operation in human history. Across Earth, hidden facilities activated. From deep ocean bases disguised as research stations, mountain bunkers concealed beneath tourist resorts, and desert complexes hidden under legitimate mining operations, personnel moved with practiced precision. Weapons caches were distributed. Stealth craft were prepared for launch. Communication systems independent of Council-monitored networks came online. In orbit, carefully planted operatives aboard Council vessels prepared to disable critical systems at the designated time. On the lunar surface, concealed missile platforms powered up beneath the regolith. Throughout the asteroid belt, human ships that had never appeared on any Council registry emerged from hiding. The shadow awakened, stretching muscles long developed in secret, preparing to reveal itself to an unsuspecting galaxy that had underestimated humanity's determination to remain free. In the command center, President Hume watched the activity monitors with grim satisfaction. "Send the message to all Umbra commands. The time has come to reclaim our future. Earth stands today. Earth fights tomorrow." In the darkness of Neptune's shadow, Commander Ryuhi stood on the bridge of the stealth observation vessel Phantom, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. Through the main viewport, she watched as ships emerged from hidden docks throughout the outer planets. The sight took her breath away. Thousands of vessels, from nimble fighters to massive dreadnoughts, all bearing Earth's insignia, appearing from places the Council had never thought to look. 23 years of secrecy, sacrifice, and preparation were culminating in this moment. Ships built in hollowed-out moons, assembled in the shadows of gas giants, and hidden in the vastness of the Kuiper Belt, were now powering up their engines, their running lights creating constellations never before seen in the solar system. "I never imagined we had built so many," whispered Lieutenant Park, standing beside her. "Neither did the Council," Rue replied, her voice steady despite the emotion tightening her chest. That was rather the point. On her command console, indicators flashed as vessel after vessel reported operational status. The fleet that had never officially existed was awakening from its long slumber. "All battle groups report ready, Commander," said her tactical officer, Moon Jin, his voice carrying the tension they all felt. "Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. Council detection grids show no alerts." Ryu nodded, her eyes never leaving the gathering Armada. "Commence synchronization." Throughout the solar system, the hidden fleet powered up fully. Quantum communication networks, developed in secret using principles different from Council technology, linked all vessels, establishing the command structure developed over decades of careful planning. Ship captains who had trained for years in simulators now stood on real bridges. Weapons officers who had practiced on virtual systems now had their hands on actual controls. On her display, Ryu watched as the 7 battle groups reported in. Jupiter Group, 212 vessels, primarily heavy cruisers built within the radiation-shielded moons of Ganymede and Callisto. Saturn Group, 347 vessels, specializing in electronic warfare, constructed in the hidden facilities of Titan and Enceladus. Uranus Group, 189 vessels, mostly fast attack craft designed for hit-and-run tactics. Neptune Group, 231 vessels, including stealth bombers and reconnaissance ships. Kuiper Belt Group, 105 vessels, the long-range patrol and early warning force. Mars Group, 254 vessels, including ground support and troop transports. Ceres Group, 83 vessels, centered around the massive dreadnoughts built within the largest asteroid. "Synchronization complete," Moon reported. "Quantum link established. all vessels acknowledging command protocols. Ryu took a deep breath. Connect me to Admiral Lee. The main screen flickered, and the weathered face of Admiral Lee appeared. Behind him, the bridge of the Vengeance hummed with activity. Commander Ryu, Neptune Group status. All ships reporting ready, Admiral. Council patrols remain on standard routes with no deviation. They suspect nothing. Lee nodded. Maintain position. Await the Phase 1 signal. On Earth, Council observers noticed nothing amiss as evacuation preparations proceeded. In every major city, registration centers processed humans for relocation. Council representatives watched with satisfaction as lines of people waited patiently to receive their transport assignments and allocation permits for personal possessions. What they didn't realize was that many in those lines were Project Umbra operatives, creating the appearance of compliance while actual resistance networks spread throughout the population. Underground bunkers that had been prepared years ago were now being stocked and ready to shelter civilians during the coming conflict. The first human transport ships loaded with volunteers departed Earth orbit for the Ta City colonies. Council security forces performed only cursory inspections, having grown complacent after years of human compliance. They failed to notice that many of the transport compartments were empty, while others contained combat troops and weapons rather than civilian colonists. Captain No-G of the transport vessel, New Horizon, smiled pleasantly as a Vrelian security officer checked his manifest. 1,243 human colonists bound for Ta City E. The Vrelian noted. Unusually high number of young males in your passenger list. Many applied together from the same community, No explained. They wished to remain united during resettlement. The Vrelian nodded absently, already bored with the routine check. Proceed to departure lane 3. Next inspection at the jump point. Thank you, officer, No replied, maintaining his pleasant expression while mentally noting the positions of Council security vessels along their route. As the New Horizon and 5 similar transports moved away from Earth, their true mission remained hidden: to position combat teams near key Council facilities in the Proxima Centauri system before the main offensive began. In the asteroid belt, aboard the flagship Vengeance, Admiral Lee moved through the final preparations. The massive vessel hummed with energy as systems that had only been tested at minimal power now reached full capacity. The ship, largest ever built by human hands, represented the pinnacle of Project Umbra's achievements. 12 kilometers of weapons, shields, and advanced technology that combined reverse-engineered Council systems with unique human innovations. The bridge was a hive of controlled activity as final system checks were completed. Status reports flowed in from every section of the vessel and from ships throughout the fleet. Slip space drive calibration complete, reported the engineering officer. Stealth systems at maximum efficiency. Weapons hot but powered down to avoid detection. Lee nodded, reviewing the tactical display. Council ships moved in their predictable patterns throughout the solar system, oblivious to the Shadow Fleet watching their every move. Status of Operation Trojan, he asked. His intelligence officer brought up a new display. The evacuation transports have cleared Earth orbit without incident. Council security accepted our passenger manifests without detailed inspection. Strike teams will reach Proxima Centauri in 3 days. And the Council conference, proceeding as scheduled. They expect President Yoon to arrive to discuss implementation details of the human relocation. Admiral Lee received the final readiness reports from the 7 battle groups spread throughout the solar system. Each commander confirmed their forces were prepared and awaiting the signal. For the first time in 20 years, he allowed himself a small smile, not of joy, but of grim satisfaction that humanity's long preparation was about to bear fruit. The Council believes we have accepted our fate, he told his bridge crew, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast command center. They think we will meekly surrender our homeworld and scatter among the stars at their command. Their arrogance blinds them. They never imagined we could create all this in secret while smiling and bowing to their demands. He turned to his communications officer. Send the activation code. Operation Midnight commences in 6 hours. The code flashed through the quantum network to every vessel and installation in the Shadow Fleet. On Mars, Earth, Luna, Titan, Europa, and throughout the asteroid belt, millions of soldiers and crew who had lived double lives for years emerged from hiding, boarding their vessels with grim determination. Families bid quiet goodbyes to those leaving for the front lines. Some had known of their loved ones' secret training. Many had not. In the underground facilities beneath Denver, Colorado, disguised as deep transit expansions, Colonel Kim Sun watched as her infantry division boarded assault shuttles. These men and women had trained in secret for years, often conducting exercises in remote locations under the guise of corporate team-building retreats or environmental research expeditions. "Remember your training," she told a group of young soldiers as they checked their weapons. Advanced pulse rifles developed using a combination of human ingenuity and stolen Council technology. The Council forces rely heavily on automation and have little experience with actual combat. Use that to your advantage. In lunar caverns, defense teams activated surface-to-space weapons hidden beneath the regolith. The massive cannons had been constructed in pieces, smuggled to the moon disguised as mining equipment over decades. Major Park Da, commanding the Tycho Crater Battery, received the activation code and felt a weight lift from his shoulders. At last, he said to his executive officer, "No more hiding. No more pretending to be less than we are." His XO agreed. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden strength revealed itself, not to the Council, not yet, but to the men and women who had maintained the secret for so long. On the Vengeance, Admiral Lee received an update from Earth. "Report from Earth, Admiral," said his communications officer. "President Yoon has departed for the evacuation conference with her security detail. Her shuttle has cleared Council checkpoints and is proceeding to the rendezvous point." Lee nodded. The security detail, actually elite commandos, would ensure the President's safety during her most dangerous mission. Yoon's plan to confront the Council directly carried enormous risk, but potential diplomatic value. If nothing else, it would focus Council attention while the human fleet deployed. "All ships, execute Phase 1, Lee ordered, his voice carrying to every vessel in the hidden Armada. For Earth. Throughout the solar system, the Shadow Fleet began to move. In carefully coordinated maneuvers, ships emerged from hiding places and formed into battle groups. Stealth technology, the product of 2 decades of secret research, kept them invisible to Council detection systems. From her observation post near Neptune, Commander Ryu watched as her battle group assembled, a lethal force of stealth vessels designed to strike Council communications relays and sensor arrays. Course plotted to first target, Moon reported, the Council relay station at Triton. Ryu nodded. "Proceed at stealth speed. No emissions until we're in attack position." The Phantom slipped forward, leading its battle group toward the unsuspecting Council facility. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes played out as humanity's hidden forces moved toward their targets. In Earth orbit, Council ships continued their routine patrols. The Council commanders, confident in their overwhelming advantage, had no reason to suspect the massive operation unfolding around them. Their scans showed only what they expected to see, a defeated world preparing for evacuation. What they could not detect were the thousands of stealth fighters hidden in Earth's upper atmosphere, the defense platforms concealed beneath the oceans, or the ground forces moving into position near key Council installations on the surface. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as the massive dreadnought moved out of its hiding place deep within Ceres. Behind it came the other capital ships of the human fleet, vessels with names like Defiance, Courage, and Humanity's Hope. "Time to Council detection," Lee asked. 18 hours at current approach, his tactical officer replied. "Sooner if they alter their patrol patterns or we increase speed." Lee nodded. "Maintain stealth approach. We reveal ourselves only when all groups are in position." He looked out at the stars. The same stars that had watched over humanity's long journey from cave-dwelling primitives to a species capable of hiding an entire armada from the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. 23 years ago, he said quietly, they thought they had conquered us without firing a shot. Today they learned the cost of underestimating humanity. The human armada moved through the solar system like ghosts, unseen, undetected, but very real. The countdown to humanity's revelation had begun, and the Council remained completely unaware that their carefully managed subject species was about to shatter their illusions of control. High Counselor Tula entered the Grand Council chamber on Proxima Centauri with the confident stride of someone accustomed to having his decisions obeyed without question. The ceremonial robes of his office shimmered with embedded light crystals that cast a subtle glow around him as he took his place at the central dais. Today's meeting was a formality. The human president would arrive to discuss the details of her species' relocation, expressing appropriate gratitude for the Council's generosity while accepting the inevitable. The 500 representatives from member species filled the chamber, their conversations creating a low hum beneath the soaring dome. Many had come out of curiosity to see how humans would react to their displacement, while others attended to secure favorable positions in the redistribution of Earth's remaining resources. High Counselor Mrath's crystalline form glittered as he leaned toward Tula. The human leader arrives soon. Initial reports indicate their evacuation preparations proceed as directed. As expected, Tula replied. They understand their position in the galactic order. The announcement chimes sounded, and all eyes turned to the main entrance as the human delegation arrived. High Counselor Tula stared in disbelief at what he saw. Instead of the submissive posture he had anticipated, President Yoon walked with dignity and purpose, her head high, her steps measured and confident. Her small security detail, 6 humans in simple dark uniforms, scanned the room with alert, professional gazes. This was not the demeanor of a defeated species coming to beg for better terms. "Welcome, Madam President," Tula said, recovering quickly. "We appreciate your cooperation with the transition process. Your personal leadership has made this difficult but necessary relocation proceed smoothly." Yoon's expression remained neutral, betraying neither anger nor submission. "High Counselor Tula, before we discuss implementation details, I'd like to address the full council, if I may." Tula hesitated only briefly. What harm could her words do now? The decision was made. The ships were in orbit around Earth, and human compliance was assured by their military weakness. "Of course, a formality we can accommodate," Tula said, gesturing to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. Yoon ascended the steps to the platform, which adjusted to her height, a rare courtesy from council technology that typically favored the physical dimensions of the founding species. She stood silently for a moment, surveying the assembled representatives from dozens of worlds. Many shifted uncomfortably under her steady gaze. "Honored Council," she began, her voice clear and carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Humanity thanks you for your guidance these past decades. You've taught us much about the galaxy, about advanced technology, and about ourselves." A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber at what appeared to be an acknowledgement of council superiority. "Most importantly," Yoon continued, her tone shifting subtly, "you've taught us that in this galaxy, power is the only language truly respected. Appeals to justice, to empathy, to fairness. These mean nothing without the strength to enforce them." The chamber fell silent as her words registered. High Counselor Mrath's crystalline form stiffened. 23 years ago, you came to our world offering protection and partnership. In reality, you came to exploit a species you believed was too primitive to resist. You took our resources, restricted our development, and now plan to take our homeworld itself. Tula rose to his feet. "Madam President, this emotional display is—" "I am not finished, High Counselor," Yoon interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. "At this moment, human forces are seizing control of key council installations throughout explored space. Your communication networks are compromised. Your defense grids are disabled. The human fleet that you never knew existed is now revealing itself. Gasps and shouts erupted throughout the chamber. Council security forces moved toward the platform, their weapons appearing from concealed positions. But Hume's security detail moved with surprising speed, producing advanced weapons that even the Council guards did not recognize. They created a protective perimeter around their president, facing outward with calm professionalism. "I suggest everyone remain calm," Yoon said. "My purpose here is not violence, but negotiation. Real negotiation, between equals." Across the galaxy, the human counterattack unfolded with devastating precision. The Shadow Fleet, hidden for decades, emerged at strategic locations, targeting military installations, shipyards, and command centers. In the Epsilon Indy system, home to the Council's largest shipyard, Commander Ryuhi stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable. The massive structure of the shipyard filled the main view screen, a sprawling complex stretching hundreds of kilometers, where the Council built its largest vessels. Dozens of partially completed ships hung in various stages of construction. Council defense vessels maintained a standard patrol pattern, unaware of the invisible threat that had slipped past their perimeter. "All ships in position," reported Moon Jin. "Council defense grid still shows no alert status." Ryu nodded, her expression focused. "Disengage stealth systems on my mark. All ships, prepare to execute attack pattern Omega. Remember our primary objective. Disable, don't destroy. We need their facilities intact." She waited until the final confirmation came through that all elements of the coordinated attack across Council space were in position. Mark. In an instant, 70 human warships materialized around the Epsilon Indy shipyard, their stealth fields dropping to reveal vessels that combined sleek human design aesthetics with technology the Council believed was beyond human capability. "Council vessels are raising shields," Moon reported. "Defense grid activating. Too slowly. Our electronic countermeasures are working." "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega," Ryu ordered. Her battle group swept through the defenses, targeting communication arrays, weapons platforms, and engine systems with surgical precision. The specially designed human weapons, developed to exploit weaknesses in Council defensive technology, penetrated shields that would have repelled conventional attacks. Council vessels, caught completely unprepared, responded with confusion and uncoordinated defensive actions. Many were disabled before they could fire a single shot. Others retreated, attempting to regroup, only to find their communication systems jammed by human electronic warfare. On the main shipyard control station, Council commanders frantically tried to understand how humans, a species restricted to 30 patrol vessels with limited capabilities, could possibly mount such an overwhelming attack. "Target their command center," Ryu ordered. Standard disabling protocol. The Indomitable's main weapons fired, sending precisely calibrated energy pulses that overloaded the command center's power systems without destroying the structure. Within moments, the shipyard's main lights flickered and died, emergency systems providing only minimal illumination. "Command center neutralized," Moon reported. "All primary targets disabled. Council resistance at 15% and falling." Ryu allowed herself a small smile. "Begin Phase 2. Boarding teams deploy." From the human vessels, smaller craft launched, carrying specialized teams trained to secure the shipyard's key systems and the valuable technology it contained. On 12 key worlds throughout Council space, similar scenarios played out simultaneously. Council forces, caught completely unprepared, faced a human armada that seemed to materialize from nowhere. The attacks followed the same pattern, precise, overwhelming, and focused on disabling rather than destroying. At Sirius Prime, the Council's primary communication hub, human forces seized control of the relay stations that coordinated faster-than-light communications throughout Council territory. At Tau City, the worlds being prepared for human relocation were instead occupied by human military forces, who quickly disabled the minimal defenses and established control. On Proxima Centauri itself, The capital world of the Council. Human stealth ships appeared in orbit, neutralizing the defense grid within minutes while deploying protective shields around the Grand Council chamber, where President Yoon was carrying out her part of the plan. In the chamber, the emergency alarms blared as the building shook slightly from the precision strikes against nearby military installations. Council representatives looked around in confusion and growing fear as their personal communication devices failed simultaneously. A panicked aide rushed to High Counselor Mrath, his multiple limbs trembling. "High Counselor, we've lost contact with the defense fleet. Human warships have appeared throughout the system. They're everywhere." "Impossible," Mrath thundered, his crystalline body emitting sharp tones of distress. "Their military capability was dismantled decades ago." "That's what we allowed you to believe," President Yoon said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "While you watched our official military, we built another in secret. While you restricted our official technology development, we created innovations you never imagined. While you thought you were shepherding compliant primitives, we were studying your every weakness." On the main display screens of the chamber, now controlled by human technicians, images appeared showing the simultaneous attacks across Council space. The representatives watched in stunned silence as the supposedly primitive humans demonstrated military prowess that rivaled or exceeded the Council's own capabilities. "This is outrageous," High Counselor Tula shouted, his four eyes blinking rapidly in distress. "An unprovoked attack on peaceful civilizations." "Peaceful?" Yoon's voice hardened. "You were preparing to forcibly relocate an entire species from their homeworld. How is that peaceful?" Before Tula could respond, the chamber's doors opened and a team of human soldiers entered, escorting a group of Council military commanders who had been captured in the initial assault. The commanding presence of Admiral Lee filled the room as he strode to President Yoon's side. "All primary objectives secured, Madam President," he reported formally. "Minimal casualties on both sides. The Council fleet has been neutralized, and we control all key installations in this system and 12 others. The Earth Defense Force has repelled the Council ships in our home system with similar results." President Yoon nodded. "Thank you, Admiral." She turned back to the stunned Council representatives. "Let me be very clear about our intentions. No species will be harmed if they stand down. We have no desire for Council territories or resources. This is not revenge, it's a renegotiation. Renegotiation at gunpoint is coercion, not diplomacy." Mrath protested, though with noticeably less confidence. "We attempted diplomacy for 23 years, Yoon replied calmly. "You responded with exploitation and planned exile. Now we will negotiate as equals, with the understanding that humanity will no longer accept subordinate status." High Counselor Tula, his initial shock giving way to calculation, stepped forward. "What exactly do you want, President Yoon?" "A new relationship," she answered. "Earth remains under human control. Our military capabilities are no longer subject to Council restriction. Our technological development proceeds without interference. We maintain access to interstellar trade and diplomatic relations on equal terms with Council species." "And in return?" Tula asked. "In return, we offer partnership rather than subjugation. Human innovation, human perspectives, human markets, all available to the Council through fair and equal exchange. Or would you prefer continued conflict?" Throughout the chamber, representatives from the Council's hundreds of member species whispered among themselves. Many had harbored their own resentments against the dominant Council leaders who made decisions serving their interests above others. In the Council chamber, the emergency alarms suddenly ceased, leaving an eerie silence. A moment later, the main communication systems reactivated, allowing representatives to receive updates from their homeworlds. The reports confirmed what the displays had shown. Human forces had executed a coordinated system-wide attack that had neutralized Council military capability while inflicting minimal casualties. President Yoon's voice cut through the chaos. "Today marks the end of one relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council, and potentially the beginning of another. We offer you this choice: Recognize Earth and humanity as equals, worthy of respect and fair treatment, or face a protracted conflict with an adversary you clearly underestimated. She paused, looking directly at High Counselors Tula and Wrath. The decision is yours, but choose carefully. This is only a fraction of what humanity can do when provoked. The shadow of the human fleet hanging in orbit above them gave weight to her words that no council representative could ignore. 3 days later, the council reconvened under very different circumstances. The grand chamber that had once symbolized the council's unchallenged authority now served as a vivid reminder of how quickly power could shift. Human ships held position above every major council world. The Shadow Fleet, now officially revealed as the Earth Defense Force, had achieved complete strategic superiority without a single planetary bombardment. Representatives from all council species filed into the chamber quietly, their usual confident demeanor replaced by subdued caution. Many glanced nervously at the human security personnel positioned throughout the room. Troops whose advanced armor and weapons demonstrated technology the Council had believed beyond human capability. The 7 seats of the High Council remained in place on the central days, but only 5 were occupied. High Counselor Mrath and 1 other had resigned their positions following the human revelation, unable to face the humiliation of having so catastrophically misjudged a supposedly primitive species. High Counselor Tula remained, his once brilliant iridescent skin now dull with stress and lack of sleep. His 4 eyes continually scanned the room, as if still unable to believe how completely the situation had reversed. President Yoon entered the chamber flanked by Admiral Lee and Director Song, who, despite his advanced age, had insisted on attending this historic moment. The human delegation walked with calm dignity to the center of the floor, taking positions directly before the High Council days, rather than in the lower position traditionally assigned to petitioner species. President Yoon addressed the subdued assembly, her voice clear and unwavering. For 23 years, we endured your condescension. We mined our world for your benefit. We accepted restrictions on our development. We smiled while you plotted to take our home. She paused, letting her words sink in. No one in the chamber could deny the truth of her statement. We watched as you took 90% of our resources while providing only 10% of the technology you promised. We observed how you limited our educational exchanges to ensure we would not advance too quickly. We noted how you systematically positioned us to become dependent on your approval and guidance. Admiral Lee stood at her side, his uniform now openly bearing the insignia of Earth's hidden resistance, a rising phoenix surrounding the outline of Earth, symbolizing humanity's secret rebirth from the ashes of subjugation. But we also learned, Yoon continued, her voice taking on a tone not of anger but of determined clarity. We studied your technologies and improved them. We observed how your species interact and identify the patterns of dominance you try to conceal. We mapped your strategic weaknesses, and most importantly, we prepared. On the large displays surrounding the chamber, images appeared showing the vast hidden infrastructure humans had built throughout their solar system. The shipyards inside hollowed asteroids, the training facilities beneath Martian ice caps, the research centers hidden in gas giant moons. For every council advisor watching our official programs, we had 1,000 engineers working in secret. For every approved patrol vessel you allowed us to maintain, we built 20 advanced warships you never detected. While you believed we were docile and accepting, we were planning for this day. Many council representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some with expressions of disbelief, others with reluctant admiration. High Counselor Tula finally found his voice. What do you want, President Yoon? Revenge? Reparations? The surrender of council territories? The question hung in the air as the assembled representatives held their breath. Humanity now held the power to demand almost anything, and many expected harsh terms after decades of exploitation. A new council, Yoon replied, her answer surprising many. One where Earth has equal standing with founding species, where no species can vote to displace another from their homeworld, where technology and resources are shared fairly according to need and contribution, not power and political influence. She turned to address the broader assembly. We do not seek to destroy what the Council has built. The concept of a galactic governing body is sound. The ideals described in your founding charter, cooperation, peace, mutual advancement, these are worthy goals. The problem lies not in the institution itself, but in how it has been corrupted to serve the interests of a few dominant species. With a gesture, she activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber showing a proposed new council charter. The document rotated slowly, key sections highlighted for emphasis. This is our proposal for a reformed Galactic Council, or as we suggest renaming it, the Galactic Cooperation. Equal representation for all species, transparent decision-making processes, fair resource allocation, protection of homeworld sovereignty as an absolute right, technology sharing with appropriate safeguards. She stepped forward, her expression resolute. You have 24 hours to ratify this agreement. We prefer peace and partnership, but we have demonstrated our capacity for alternatives should you choose conflict. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices as representatives began to debate among themselves. Some protested the short timeline. Others argued about specific provisions in the proposed charter, while many, particularly from less influential species, expressed support for the human proposal. President Yoon and her delegation withdrew to allow the council to deliberate, though the human fleet remained in position throughout council space, a silent reminder of the consequences of rejection. Throughout that day and into the night, intensive negotiations continued. Human diplomatic teams worked with council representatives to address concerns and clarify provisions of the new charter. Smaller species, long marginalized in council politics, found their voices suddenly valued as humanity built a coalition of support. When the vote came 23 hours later, it was unanimous. Not because every species fully embraced the changes, but because even the most reluctant recognized that the alternative to acceptance was worse. The Galactic Council was dissolved, and a galactic cooperation was born. 1 month later, as the new Galactic Cooperation Treaty took effect, Admiral Lee and Chief Engineer Ba Jin stood on the observation deck of Earth's new orbital headquarters, a massive station that served as both military command center and diplomatic hub. The structure incorporated elements of both human and council design, symbolizing the new era of collaboration. Through the vast viewport, they watched as ships from dozens of worlds moved through Earth's orbital lanes, no longer conquerors or overlords, but partners in the new galactic order. A Vrelian diplomatic vessel passed close to the station, exchanging formal greetings with Earth traffic control. Was it worth it? Ba asked, his voice quiet as he gazed at the activity. All those years in hiding, building in secret, the sacrifices, the double lives, the constant fear of discovery. Lee considered the question carefully, watching as an Earth vessel, openly displaying advanced weapons that would have been forbidden a month ago, performed a ceremonial escort for a delegation from one of the younger council species. The council underestimated us from the beginning, Lee said finally. They saw our acceptance of their terms as weakness, our patience as submission. They never understood that patience can be a weapon more powerful than any warship. He turned to face his old friend. They judged us by their standards. Since they would never have the discipline to work in secret for decades, they assumed we couldn't either. Since they would have rebelled immediately or surrendered completely, they thought those were our only options as well. Below them, Earth gleamed blue and green in the sunlight, still home to humanity, and now a respected equal in galactic affairs. The attempted evacuation had been halted immediately, and the Andorians who had expected to claim Earth as their new colony world were instead offered assistance in terraforming an uninhabited planet in a nearby system, a gesture of goodwill that had helped ease tensions in the transition. The greatest victory, Lee continued, is that we won without destroying what we sought to protect. Had we fought openly when they first arrived, Earth might have been devastated, even if we had ultimately prevailed. Instead, we defended our world not just with ships, but with strategy, patience, and resolve. Bai nodded. Human qualities the Council never valued. Until now, Lee said with satisfaction as the docking bay indicators showed the arrival of a delegation from former Council species. The visitors were coming not to issue demands or provide guidance, but to begin the first truly equal cultural exchange in galactic history. The station's diplomatic reception area had been designed to accommodate the physical requirements of diverse species while showcasing human art, music, and culture. Many visitors expressed surprise at the richness of human creative expression, another aspect of humanity that had been overlooked during the Council's management.